Soulmates. We have plenty to discuss on this Tuesday. I want to welcome you to FOXSOUL's Black Report. We're following the new prison population numbers, and they are shocking. Plus, the investors who are suing Adidas over Kanye. I'm Courtney Hicks.
And I'm Nicordelai Corte. Plus, the HBCU that's breaking records and how the USFL is offering life-changing careers for Black athletes. They're the stories that impact our people.
We're bringing you our news, our views, and our voice. So let's get into our big conversation for the day. There's a new report that finds President Biden that as he prepares to run for re-election, there's a lot of frustration amongst us Black voters that is growing. Now, many cite the frustration stemming from unkept promises. Meanwhile, the majority of Black Democratic lawmakers praise President Biden and say they believe there will be a robust turnout for the election next year. Biden began his re-election campaign last week, vowing to, quote, finish the job he started back in 2021. However, Black voters say they are skeptical, and Nicordelai, our resident political pundit, seated here. We got a Black VP. We got that Black Supreme Court justice sitting. So what are the promises that you're thinking some Black voters might be a little upset about?
Well, when it comes to finishing the job, no constituency wants them to finish the job more than Black folks, because there's a lot on the line. When we think about criminal justice reform, specifically the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, that still hasn't been done. Securing our voting rights, that still hasn't been done. Our student loan debt cancellation is tied up in the courts. And so we have a lot invested in the success of this presidency. So when he talks about finishing the job, Black folks say, you got to finish that too.
But how much of that is President Biden and how much of that is him running up against that brick wall, that red brick wall, if you will?
Well, I mean, but part of it is the red brick wall in Congress, particularly in the House of Representatives, now that they regain control after the midterms. But the other part of this is Democrats in the Senate. We have a majority in the Senate, but not a super majority. And so I think part of what Democrats are frustrated by are Senate Democrats, particularly those that are willing to adhere to the filibuster rule no matter what. You don't even want to entertain conversations about carving out the filibuster to allow for a vote on voting rights and other very important rights that are important to Black folks. And so it's not just the president, but for folks that are running for Senate, and Will Jawando from Maryland just announced this morning, a young Black man, and Montgomery County council person is running for Senate in Maryland. We got to ask them hard questions. Will they be willing to reform the filibuster rule so that President Biden can finish the job if we give him a second term?
And will the brothers and sisters be willing to stroll to the polls this election season? We'll definitely keep on top of that for sure.
We will find out. Well, according to a report by the Leadership Conference Education Fund, hate crimes have been on the rise during presidential election cycles, and the trend is expected to continue. The study shows this trend has been ongoing since 2008, with a significant increase during Donald Trump's campaign. The highest number of hate crimes since 1991 was reported in 2021. The report's authors warn that action is needed to prevent another increase during the 2024 election cycle. African Americans, religious groups, and LGBTQ individuals are the most targeted.
Well, this isn't really a surprise, especially, entering into an election season that has a tendency to move the needle when it comes to how people really feel. People are having real, raw discussions and topics, and they're talking about issues that affect them personally. Sometimes folks are going to agree. Sometimes folks are not going to agree, sometimes based on situations, sometimes based on personal feelings, sometimes just based on cultural differences. So an election season has a tendency to lift the veil, if you will. It also has a tendency to bring forth candidates who, are very comfortable with saying some very sideways, backwards things and being very divisive. The first one that comes to mind would be Trump and some of the rhetoric and the nonsense that he, spewed out there during his election season, which also causes a lot of tension and for a lot of people to rise up with how they really feel about things.
And this report really serves as a reminder that a lot of the rhetoric is abnormal. You've heard folks saying this time and time again, at least the past several election cycles, this is not normal, this is not normal. And so this report reminds us that there's a cost to that rhetoric.
Sure.
And that cost can very easily translate into violence. It can very easily translate into folks using lawmaking as a bludgeon against the people that aren't like them, that don't look like them, that don't worship like them, that don't love like them. And so, we all get to choose every election cycle. And hopefully, as you mentioned earlier, more of us stroll to the polls.
That's right.
And make sure that love conquers hate. Not just this election cycle, but every election cycle. Every election cycle
to come. All right, a veteran political operative has become the first black woman to lead South Carolina's Democratic Party. I want you to meet Crystal Spain. Her election comes as the state prepares for the 2024 presidential cycle, with the Democrats' recent revamp of its primary schedule placing South Carolina among the first states to vote. Spain joins a growing number of black women leading state Democratic parties, as Georgia, right here in Michigan, and Nevada have also elected black women as party chairs. Spain plans to focus on year-round voter engagement and mobilization efforts in hopes of improving the party's statewide wins. Once again, we're talking about that strolling to the polls. We got to trust it, though. As black voters, we got to trust it. And it appears as though, women continue to come to the forefront of folks who we can trust.
Yeah, and we've got to organize for it. I mean, the fact that in Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, and now South Carolina, you have black women that are chairing state parties. That is major.
It is.
The fact that South Carolina was moved up in the Democratic primary schedule. So unlike previous years, black voters in South Carolina get to set the tone for this coming Democratic primary. That's a big deal, and to have black women, on the ground leading the work, that is also a major shift.
Yes,
it's a major shift.
Still saving the world.
Yeah, and this is a bad sister right here.
She is.
She was political director for Bernie Sanders. She worked for Senator Cory Booker. She worked for Jim Clyburn, and so she's worked with folks that represent the Democratic Party of a previous generation, and also people that are thought of as future leaders.
That's right.
Of the Democratic Party.
And so the up and coming folks.
So there are a lot of people very confident in her leadership.
Indeed.
Well, calls for the resignation of the Virginia Chief Officer of Diversity, Opportunity, and Inclusion, Martin Brown, have intensified after he referred to the state's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiative as dead during a keynote speech at the Virginia Military Institute. Brown also stated that diversity cannot be an institution's mission, emphasizing that it can inform it instead. The NAACP's Virginia chapter and lawmakers are criticizing Brown for his remarks, claiming that he is undermining the office's mission and dismissing the progress made in civil rights.
Oh, brother. But what really are these institutions had it not been for diversity? When you talk about the slave and then soon after freed blacks, you talk about indigenous folks who either were here and then we were brought here. And this country was built on our backs, as far as the infrastructure is concerned. And then as we progress as a culture, go through that list of inventions. I mean, we get a little something, we get the peanut and the other things and the hair care products, but go through that list of inventions. We're talking something as simple as a street light, and think about the contribution. So when he talks about institutions, you would have none if it wasn't for diversity in regards to the folks of color who have contributed to the betterment, the development, really, of this country.
And I don't think this brother is speaking to us. I think he is speaking to his audience of one, which is Governor Youngkin, who allows him to serve in that role.
He's trying to play good, play nice.
I think he's trying to play good and play nice. It's hard to believe that somebody would think that would present this false choice, that somehow diversity, equity, and inclusion is at odds with the mission of that institute. And the institute's mission, and part of it is advancing democracy. Well, what kind of democracy are we going to advance? Is it going to be a multiracial democracy or not? Because some of these folks out here talking about, being pro-democracy, I say, well, pro-democracy for whom?
Yeah, but it's been a couple of brothers, and sisters in the news been drinking some of that Kool-Aid. It's getting stronger. He's drinking
the same stuff Justice Clarence is drinking.
Yeah, it's spiked. It's spiked for sure. All right, last week, Assistant Professor R. Scott Heath's firing sparked protests by at least 100 Loyola University students. That's down in New Orleans. Heath was the director of the African and African American Studies program, and his contract wasn't renewed last fall. Students and faculty members claim Heath's dismissal puts the future of the university's Black Studies program in doubt, since he was the only Black faculty member. Loyola's vice president of marketing and communications says the university cannot comment on specific personnel matters, but it is reviewing this particular case.
Well, shout out to the student organizers at Loyola University in New Orleans, for seeing something, saying something, and doing something. Right? This doesn't seem to smell right. The fact that there is one university professor, that if he is gone, that means that their African American Studies program is put in jeopardy. What's up with that? Of all places, in New Orleans?
Yeah.
This is happening in New Orleans, and the university doesn't really have a good answer for, why they are dismissing him. And this is just another reminder of an experience that I think a lot of Black folks feel, not just in academia, but in a lot of industries right now, as if Black folks are disposable, right? They didn't even give him
an opportunity
an explanation as to why they weren't going to renew his contract. And so I would imagine after they watch FOXSOUL's Black Report, they might rethink that. Well, we're going to at least hope. Authorities returned 5-week-old Mila to her parents, Tamisha and Rodney Jackson, after a tumultuous battle. Mila, you might remember, was taken by Dallas County constables and the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services on March 28th, just a few days after a pediatrician recommended treatment for jaundice, and was placed in foster care. A Dallas-based reproductive justice organization named the Afaya Center advocated for the family and called out systemic racism as the reason behind the separation. Advocates held rallies and protested outside the Texas DFPS for Mila's return.
Yeah, well, this smells funky too, and there's been, matter of fact, these cases were pretty much on the heels of each other. This one, the later one, the first one being the parents of 5 who were traveling through the states from the South to Chicago for a family funeral, being stopped, small ounce of marijuana. All the kids were taken, and those kids were gone for weeks, as was this baby here. And, we appreciate the care and we can appreciate the concern, but, it seems a little fishy that these families of colors, and the statistics have shown that the families of color have a tendency to suffer more severe consequences in regards to their children actually being taken from them, and some of those stereotypes that we feel are in place that calls for these workers to take these very extreme actions.
Yeah, and people wonder, how is it that Black folks are overrepresented in the child welfare system, in the foster care system? This is a part of how this happened. There's no reason why this should have happened based upon the information that we've reported on, based upon what's out there. There's no reason why this should have happened. And the fact that, this mom and dad decided to have a natural birth and, did all the things they were supposed to do with their doula and their midwife, and was in communication with the pediatrician, who suddenly went left and decided to call Child Protective Services. It was a very extreme reaction from the pediatrician that we still haven't seen a proper explanation for.
Agree. All right, let's go to Tampa Bay, where the Buccaneers linebacker Shaquille Barrett and his family are just devastated at the loss of their 2-year-old daughter, Araya Barrett, who reportedly drowned in the family pool. According to Tampa police, officers were called to the residence after receiving a report about a child falling into a pool. Despite doctors' efforts, Araya died at a nearby hospital. The Buccaneers released a statement offering their condolences to the family, and Shaquille's social media revealed that Araya had recently celebrated her birthday. The investigation is ongoing, but authorities believe the incident was accidental and not suspicious. This happened like in the morning time, right around 9:30, where they ran out and saw her in the pool. Just absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
I can't imagine it either. I mean, our hearts go out to them.
Yeah.
There was some really beautiful photos that they posted of her. She just recently celebrated a birthday, and an adorable little girl. And part of that social media post said, "Oh wow, our family's now complete." And so, heart really goes out to them as they just begin their journey on the healing path. Well, according to reports, Alicia Keys has reached out to the lawyer representing Ralph Yarl, a 16-year-old who was shot in the head after he mistakenly knocked on the door of the wrong house, to offer her support. EYS reported plans to invite Yarl to an upcoming concert event in Kansas City, where she'll be performing on July 21st at the Enterprise Center in St. Louis. Rock Nation, the entertainment company founded by Jay-Z, has also reached out to the family to offer assistance. After being shot twice by Andrew Lester, Yarl has received support from various public figures, including President Joe Biden and Wanda Cooper-Jones, the mother of Ahmaud Arbery, who was right here on Fox Soul's Black Report just last week, talking about his case and so much more that's on the minds and hearts of mothers of the movement.
It really does take a village, and some of our faves, some of our celebrities, you know, they have the means and the access and the platform and the voice. So it's good to see folks like Alicia Keys and others, you know, reach out to these families, you know, as these headlines fade. This young man is going to need a lot of, you know, more care and concern. Families like Shaquilla Robinson's family is going to need a voice, is going to need a platform to continue to seek justice. The situation where, you know, they keep finding the young man's body parts spread throughout, you know, an area of the wilderness and his dismemberment. That family's going to need long-time support and help and mental and emotional support. So it's good to see that these artists, a lot of them do get it, and they do give back. Sometimes we hear about it, and most times we don't. Yeah. But it's good to see them in those spaces and be aware. And you know, activists in that nature. Yeah,
and it's also important to remind folks that there's a community trauma that we experience when we watch you know, these stories, when we report on these cases. We all feel sort of a ripple effect from this, right? You know, when I see folks going door to door in neighborhoods, I think of Ralph Yarl, right? You know, whether we're talking about Instacart deliveries or postal workers, you know, or just little kids selling something, knocking on doors, as we did when we were coming up. And so, you know, I think there's a lot of healing that needs to be done, but it's good to see Alicia Keys really using her platform to help Ralph Yarl through this really challenging time.
That's right. Straight ahead, Uncle Snoop is adding to his resume, looking to make one of his biggest purchases yet.
That's right. We'll tell you all about the sports team he wants in on when we return. You're watching Fox Soul's Black Report. Well, welcome back to Fox Soul's Black Report. Well, the results of a new study revealed some shocking stats about prison population during the pandemic.
So even though prison populations decreased during the early months of the pandemic, the percentage of incarcerated African Americans, you guessed it, increased. Now, this new prison data showed the higher percentage incarcerated Black prisoners by mid-2020 was found in almost every state, and temporarily reversed a decades-long decrease seen in the national prison population.
Now, while several factors contributed to the increase, researchers from Yale, Northeastern University, and the Santa Fe Institute argue sentencing disparities play a major role. And boy, do they. I mean, my goodness gracious, you know, the fact that people look at this increase and they say, well, okay, it only increased by, 1%. What's that? That represents tens of thousands of Black folks that are impacted by this, and not just individuals, but tens of thousands of families that are impacted by this, communities that are impacted by this.
And this doesn't even include the conversation of recidivism.
Recidivism.
That's it. Because, when they do finish their time and are released, a lot of them are also going back, which I'm sure adds to the increase, because, they're counted again, in those numbers. So there's just this big, huge conversation that needs to continue to be had. It's been ongoing for years. I don't really hear any solution-based conversation, because now these type of situations are trickling into the juvenile system with Black youth who are being imprisoned at this point. So it's just a conversation that I feel keeps happening and happening and happening, but nothing happens. There's no results. There's no change. I don't know.
And there's a way to think about this, not just in terms of the impact on our households and on our communities, but think about, the task of building Black political power. These are thousands of voters that aren't able to vote, in the communities where they come from, right? And, also think about those implications in terms of statewide races. We know the presidential election in 2020, hinged on what, tens of thousands of votes, right?
Yeah.
So imagine if our folks, weren't a part of that recidivism pipeline, and were supported, had the support that they needed, in order to thrive after doing their time.
So many moving parts, so many components, but while those numbers are on the increase and there's more people being in prison, they need to really focus in on prison conditions, because we've been having too many stories where those conditions are just deplorable.
Lots of work to do.
Yeah, indeed. All right, economists are warning of more financial fallout across the country following the collapse of First Republic Bank. The Federal Reserve is expected to raise interest rates again this week. Some economists warn those rates will affect the commercial real estate market and cause banks to tighten credit conditions, which will weigh down spending that could lead to hundreds of small and mid-sized banks lending less money and acting more conservatively to minimize the risks encountered by First Republic and Silicon Valley Bank. Real interesting, because they were like, hey, who wants a bank? Who wants a bank? Who wants a bank? The negotiations kind of happened over the weekend, and bam. And the reason I paid attention to it is because the bank who acquired First Republic is my bank.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there like, okay, well, how is this going to affect, my situation? And the stocks dipped a little bit. You would think, a takeover would, cause the shareholders to say, yay, but they just dipped a little bit, which tells me that folks are being so cautious. Even though you have these two institutions coming together, what was the debt, what was the gravity that Chase had to take on, and why it affected their bottom line, if it will continue to affect their bottom line. It's so shaky nowadays. You better grab your money and find a good black bank who's probably going to be a lot more sensitive, and there's plenty out there, and take care of your money. I know One United is one of them. We talked about them before.
Yeah, well, it's
more than.
It's a good thing wherever your money is right now. It is FDIC insured, up to $250,000, and there are folks in government that are considering proposals to increase that, so that people are reassured that your money's fine. One of the good pieces of news that came out of this is that the Federal Reserve came out and they insured what was lost. And so well above the $250,000 limit, they made sure that people were taken care of. And so
this
is an opportunity for us to update that, so that people have some reassurance that your money is going to be fine.
It's still very scary, and I feel like for us, we might start putting our money back up under the mattress, which is safe to us, but really doesn't do your money any good in regards to your money making money. But it's just very scary. Here you are out here, you got to worry about scammers tapping into your bank account. Now you got to worry about your bank not being able to make good or hold good to what their promises are as you continue to use their banking. So it's just a scary time right now, in my opinion. And
particularly for small businesses, because that payroll is real. And employees want to make sure that their companies are solvent enough where they ain't gonna go look at that direct deposit and see a bunch of zeros.
I'm telling you.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Well, investors are suing Adidas over the company's partnership with Kanye West. The investors say Adidas knew about the risk of its partnership with Ye years before it severed its ties with the rapper. Adidas halted its partnership with Ye in October after the Grammy-winning artist made anti-Semitic remarks. The company has called his comments unacceptable, hateful, and dangerous.
Kanye's been Kanye for a very long time.
They had to know.
No doubt, but money talks, BS walks, and it's all about that dollar. It's all about that green. So Kanye could have just been as loopy and loony as he wanted to in those board meetings with them. When you see the dollar signs, and after that partnership was dissolved, Adidas got to crying about how much money they were losing. They were even looking to Beyonce's line to help out a little bit, which didn't. So I feel like, they really, couldn't care too much about his stance on things until it got to a point where you had to care about what he was saying because he was so off the rails. But Kanye has always been, geniuses have a tendency to be a little touched. And so for you not to kind of perceive that maybe, something like this could happen with him falling off the rails, and knowing, how detrimental that would be to your bottom line, it's got to all fall back on them, in my opinion.
I would imagine that companies are going to be doing a better job vetting who they go into partnership with.
That's
I would
right.
imagine that the moral clause in a lot of contracts is, going to get beefed up in light of this. I mean, there were a lot of things that came up, in the case, against Fox News related to Tucker Carlson. There are a lot of stuff that came up in this Kanye West case, right? And, the big question that investors want to know is, well, what did you know and when did you know it? And if you knew, that there was, an added risk or, a bigger risk of doing business with this person, what were the mitigation efforts that you put in place on the front end? And it seems that so far Adidas has not been able to answer that question from investors.
That is foundational when you're entering into partnership with somebody. I just went to doctor. I'm having on glasses today because I have a sty. So I'm up here. I got new doctors. They want to know this. They want to know that before they even touch you, before they even look at you and come in the office, you're filling out all this paperwork. They want to know about things that you're looking at that they're like, why do you want to know about that? I don't understand why that type of vetting, doesn't happen maybe in the corporate world, especially when you're entering in such intimate relationships, with these endorsers who become your face, who become the brand, who become the spokesperson. I do believe you're going to have to stoke and dig a little bit deeper. And if they had done that, and it wasn't all about just money, if they had done that, somebody would have said, you know what? I don't know.
Or they would have been more prepared.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. All right. If you thought his resume couldn't get any longer, you thought wrong. Snoop Dogg is looking into another business venture. This time he has his eyes set on the National Hockey League. Snoop took to his Instagram this week to share his hopes for the future. He wants to join in with LA-based businessman Nico Sparks, who is reportedly looking to buy the Ottawa Senators. This would make it a historical purchase, as Sparks would become the first black owner of a NHL team, something Snoop says he wants to be a part of. I told you black folks do hockey.
You did tell me that. Now, I still have not been, to a hockey game here in Detroit yet, but we're working on that.
We are.
But, cheers to Snoop. I mean, I just really love the spirit of entrepreneurship, that is afoot. It feels like, a renaissance right now in terms of black entrepreneurship. So many stories we've reported on of very familiar faces, that are investing their time, talent, and treasure in a host of different industries. And I think Snoop, is a shining example of that. I mean, he's in the wine industry. We were talking about Snoop Loops, the cereal coming out. He's involved in the cannabis industry. He has ownership in the record industry. And so, who would have ever thought, that Snoop from Southern California, would go, from where he started to where he's at today. And if he can do it, imagine all of our soulmates that are watching what they might do.
Yeah, we talk a lot about Diddy and Jay-Z, but this guy here, he's right there with them. Sometimes Snoop has a tendency to ride under the radar. I think he kind of likes it that way. And then all of a sudden, bam, he comes with something and you're like, Snoop. But his resume, his portfolio is incredible. And you're right. I was down with the beginning days of that whole set that he's from, and he was a bad boy, and you'd be like, something going, and he has outlasted a lot of them, which is good to see.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's awesome. Well, coming up, he is a star, the star of the USFL. Terry Myrick.
He's going to join us here in studio to talk about the draft and the current season of the USFL and all the work he's doing off the field for the culture. Soulmates, you're watching Fox Soul's Black Report. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Fox Soul's Black Report. He's a tattoo and piercing artist by day and a self-proclaimed parking lot Robin Hood by night.
Oh yeah, his name is Christian Verrett, and he says he's gotten one too many boots on his car in Atlanta, and now he's on a mission to help others. Our friends at Fox in Atlanta have the story.
The key to getting free.
If you get a car boot, I most likely have a key that's compatible with the lock.
Christian Verrett has unlocked a side hustle that fits the need of a lot of people in Metro Atlanta, duplicating and selling master keys for tire boots.
These four will cover 90, maybe 95% of the boots in Atlanta.
For $50, which is less than booting fees, Verrett sells the keys, and the demand is real. So far, he's sold 600.
There's maybe about 6 or 7 companies that boot. There's a few really big companies that have the majority of the contracts. I have all of their keys.
And Atlanta police say it's completely legal. The only 2 ways you can get into trouble: if you steal the boot or damage it. Getting the boot banned has been in the headlines this year, but failed this legislative session. So this parking lot Robin Hood is calling on Atlanta's mayor and council to stop the practice within city limits.
In the meantime, this is the people's only alternative, and honestly, I don't care if the business fails. I'm here just to help the people out.
I love it.
Bravo.
I love it. Help the people out.
That's right. We need more of that.
That's right.
You know, I mean, getting a boot on your car can completely ruin your day. Think about how many people might have been on their way to a job interview or on their way to work, on the way to daycare, and you discover that you have this boot on your car. You know, it's not that people just want to run roughshod, do what they want to do, but oftentimes if people didn't have the money to pay the ticket in the first place, then it's no surprise if they get another parking ticket that they can't pay it. And so there's got to be other alternatives. I'm proud that this brother has figured out a way to help the people.
Yeah, and you've seen so many viral videos where those, boot folks come and try to boot up, and you have people who try to catch them in the act and give them a rough time where they're just doing their jobs, or maybe even the tow truck folks who come and tow, those cars and they get in the way. And sometimes it becomes a very dangerous situation. So maybe, being able to legally lock those boots will result in some very, peaceful maybe confrontations, because it goes down not only with the boot folks, but like the ticket folks. You're running to your meter, and it's like sometimes they're standing there waiting for those meters to expire so they can write you a ticket. So, if it's legal and it works, let's get it.
And it's going to be interesting
and let the city figure out the rest.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what the city comes up with, what the mayor comes up with, because he's actually working with the mayor's office in Atlanta to figure out what's an alternative to people being booted and sort of stuck, right? And so I think he's created a lot of leverage by creating these little keys that help people to
But on the other
unbooted.
side of it, soulmates, if you've got those tickets, they're adding up, you can't just drive around here and not take responsibility of your actions. So hopefully working with the mayor, they'll find some middle ground and everybody can drive away happy.
Bootless.
Bootless and happy.
That's right. Well, we are thrilled to have a special guest in studio today.
Yeah.
That's right. We have Michigan Panthers linebacker here.
Terry Myrick, who is returning to the Panthers for his second season in the USFL and is already showing why he's expected to be one of the key defensive leaders for the team.
But it's the charitable work. It's the charitable work that he's also doing off the field that has everyone talking. Terry, welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, brother.
Yes.
Hey, how y'all doing?
As I do a little set design here.
Looking like you just got back from the Met Gala.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Yeah, you look
this is
great.
an opportunity, man. I'm extremely grateful for y'all to have me on today. I just want to show what we've been doing in the community around here.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's been an international effort for me. But just being able to be on the Black Report is a great honor for me.
Oh, okay.
It's an honor for us.
So sweet. It's an honor for us.
Yeah.
So we know you want to talk about your community work. Let's start first with your platform, which is the USFL. So for those soulmates who might not be familiar, what makes it unique compared to the other professional leagues? That being, we talked a little bit about the NFL. Back in the day, there was arena football. What makes the USFL so different and pleasing to play for and with?
Correct. So as you stated, the United States Football League is a standalone pro football league. It's its own, standalone pro football league. It's on Fox. We just want to create a product that people get to see at home when the football season isn't going in the fall. A lot of people, we're hungry for football. I know I'm hungry for football year round. I can't help but watch it. So just getting an opportunity to compete with people that have been in the NFL, trying to get back to the NFL, or just trying to get there in general, like I am, it's a great honor and privilege. We're playing on Sunday nights. We're playing on Sunday mornings.
Big time. That's big
People
time.
are waking up, anticipating our game. So it's extremely exciting.
Yeah, and we were talking a little off camera, and you came right out of college. You went to Eastern Michigan University, so you were able to go from college into a professional, a real deal professional situation.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I left Eastern in the winter of 21. I entered my name in the NFL draft and the USFL draft. if I didn't get picked by one, I got picked by the other.
By the other, right.
Yes, I got picked by the USFL, and I went straight there. I did my pro day, and I reported to Birmingham, Alabama.
Wow.
Prepared in training camp and started playing. I started every game, and this year I'm right back. Full-time contributor on special teams, helping out on defense. I'm just really honored.
You're all over the field.
All over the field. All over
We
the field.
love it. We love
Just
it.
overflowing with talent.
Yeah.
Well, so the Michigan Panthers, we know that they played their first home game at Ford Field over the past weekend. How's the season going from, where you sit, and how's the team doing?
So this year, we've already matched our winning total from last year. We've won 2 games, and unfortunately, we lost our home opener. We just reported we didn't get off the bus. That's what I'll say. We didn't get off the bus. We didn't play our brand of football, and it showed. I think we got a little too big in ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
We got a little big-headed. So this week, we're going to regroup, regather, and come out and compete. We're going to treat this game like it's a Super Bowl. And this week and every week following that, we're going to play every game like that's the only game that matters.
I was going to say, a very competitive league. I mean, it is the real deal. Speaking of the league, you got Coach Prime, who gave a lot of criticism with this recent NFL draft. Shame, on the ownership, shame on management for not recruiting more HBCU players. Talk a little bit about how this league, the USFL, creates an opportunity for those players who were left behind. We're talking about 200 some odd players who were just drafted over the last few days. Only one from an HBCU. Your thoughts on that?
Well, doing my research, the top 10 players drafted into the NFL draft were all African American. We are a predominant race in the NFL.
Sure.
We comprise at least 60% of each NFL roster. The USFL is also the same. You know what I'm saying? A lot of black players on each team. We have several starting quarterbacks that are black. We compete at a very high level, whether it be in the quarterback room, in the running back room, on the offensive line, defensive backs. We do a really good job, and we are represented well. I would say Coach Prime's stance on the African American players being misrepresented, it's how you perceive it. There were 4 players drafted from the HBCU ranks last year, and only 1 got drafted. But I'll say this: if you can play, they'll find you. If you can play, they'll find you. Maybe the talent pool just wasn't as good this season, so we'll have next season to see how that plays out. But hey, if you can play, they can find you.
That's a good way to look at it.
And so from the U.S. to Ghana, let's switch gears a little bit, and I'm really digging your threads right here. This was actually made in Ghana, right?
Yes.
It looks real fresh.
Is that velvet?
Right?
Yes.
You were in Ghana at the beginning of March. I was in Ghana at the end of March. That's where my dad's from. You've been really involved in philanthropic activities in Ghana. You're really invested in it. Tell us, how has this experience, how has it impacted your perspective on using your platform to make a change, not just here in the U.S., but back home in Ghana?
So my experience in Ghana was life-changing. I got to realize and witness some things that I would have never imagined when I got to go overseas. There are so many opportunities that we have over here that we take for granted. My philanthropic efforts over there, it kind of got presented to me. I've done a lot of things at home in the community and stuff, but to have an outreach and get my voice and my message seen overseas was different. Those guys, they knew me. Like when I got off the plane and I stepped on the field, they knew my name. They were coming up and approaching me. They knew me because of the USFL, things that they've seen on social media and stuff like that. So it was really humbling. And then just to teach them the game of football. Football is the reason why I'm sitting in front of you guys. Let's be honest. Like football is the reason why I'm here. Football is not common over there. At least American football. They're used to soccer. So we wanted to get American footballs into their communities. They've never seen real footballs besides on TV. So to get those footballs in their hands, it meant the world to me because that's something that I hold near and dear to my heart.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
We were looking at some of the B-roll. You were looking real coaches, real official, real USFL coaches looking. Before we get out of here, talk a little bit more about your team, your schedule, your number, how we can look out for you. I know a lot of the games are on Fox, so we'll definitely be looking out, but a little bit more specific about some of the schedule coming up, some of your big matches, and what number we can look for, and how we can follow you, stay linked, stay connected.
Okay, so first and foremost, my number is number 44. We are in the USFL North, we are tied for first place in the USFL North with
Nice.
the Generals. We
Okay.
just lost to them, so we want to bounce
What
back.
city are the Generals in?
New Jersey.
New Jersey, okay.
New Jersey,
Okay.
but they're based out of Canton, Ohio right now. That's their hub.
Okay.
So we'll be playing the Memphis Showboats this upcoming week.
Okay.
And it's going to be a really big game. We have to, impose our will early on in the game and regain the loyalty and trust of our fans. I want to have a big turnout as the season progresses with people coming out to Ford Field. It was a great crowd, about 15,000 people this past weekend, really loud, great atmosphere.
Yeah.
So just be on the lookout. And like I say, I come bearing gifts. I
Yes,
did
you
last
do.
week.
This one's mine.
That one is yours and this one is
you.
yours.
Thank you
sir.
so
We appreciate it.
much.
Hey, real quick before we go, we
Yeah.
know that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. We know that there's been an uptick in mental health issues across the board, particularly Black folks, Black
Athletes,
youth.
athletes,
Talk to us
yeah.
about, what do you do to maintain, your mental health, and what can our soulmates sort of glean from some of the lessons you've learned?
Sounds like you lean on your mama a lot, because we were talking about mom and the conversations that you have
Absolutely.
with mom. Yeah.
It's really ironic that you guys bring that up. I'm actually getting my master's in sports psychology right now as we speak through sports. Capella University. I got my undergrad in sports performance and fitness entrepreneurship. I know that there's a lot of passionate athletes out there that stress and agonize over the game of football, basketball, whatever that sport may be that they participate in. So I want to do my due diligence in that field, and let's see how I can impact it, years on out from now.
Yeah. Number
Brother.
44, we got you. Thanks so much
Got
for
it.
joining
Thank
us
you for
today. You
coming.
are
Thank you.
awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely awesome.
We're rooting for you.
Indeed. All right, up next, it was the biggest night in fashion, just in case you were up under a rock somewhere. We're talking about the Met Gala.
That's right. From painted on looks to multiple baby bumps on the red
Yeah,
carpet.
a lot of
we break it
reveals.
all down. We break it down. We break it down the Met Gala looks that have people talking. You're watching Fox Soul's Black Report. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Fox Soul's Black Report. Well, tennis champ Serena Williams attended last night's Met Gala, but it was her +1, or should we say +2, that has everyone going crazy.
Yeah, man. Baby number 2 is on the way. The tennis great announced her second pregnancy on the red carpet with her husband, Alexis, one of the co-owners of Reddit. Serena debuted her baby bump in none other than Gucci, of course. Also sporting the baby bump was, of course, Rihanna, who that was just infamous, the way she gave us her baby bump, of course, as a part of the Super Bowl halftime. But this was quite unexpected. And, there was a lot of rumors about, will she come back? She even hinted to maybe I'll get back, on the tennis court.
Yeah.
But she obviously is moving into just a whole nother facet and area, of her life. And I love the first baby, the cute little, because she's getting so
she
big and grown.
is.
I was watching her at the U.S. Open. There's a little clip where Serena's mom is sitting like behind her, and she was doing something, and Serena's mom was like, gave her that black mother look, and she straightened up real quick. She's the cutest.
No, I mean, she looked really great. Rihanna looked great. Serena looked great. And I just love what they're also doing in terms of projecting a different image of what it looks like to be pregnant. Because remember, once upon a time, like if you were pregnant, you couldn't find, clothes that were worthy of appearing on the red carpet at a Met Gala. And I think they're changing the game in that way as well.
And being pregnant and busy, their schedules, have not necessarily let up. I mean, you saw Serena everywhere. You see Rihanna everywhere performing and so on and so forth. So a new way of being pregnant where you're carrying, but you're still out there, doing what you need to do and having your baby with you. Rihanna's gonna have that baby. She was walking into the hotel with the baby on her, and you saw Serena. That seems like that little girl travels with her everywhere as well. So it's this new look and take on motherhood, and I love it.
And we can't forget the proud papas that were right there alongside of them, supporting them. So let's give the brothers some love too.
Absolutely. All right. Speaking of the Met, celebrities from the worlds of fashion, Hollywood, sports, and music took over New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art for the annual gala. This year's theme was in honor of the late designer Karl Lagerfeld, who loved that whole black and white look. So that's why you see a lot of those colors there. Most paid tribute, looking elegant and chic. That included looks from Diddy and Young Miami, who came as a couple. You see here Janelle Monáe, who continues her her black and white tribute to our ancestors with the cone on top.
And Rihanna, she shut the carpet down. Look at her. Look at that, with that floral angelic look. I think it took something like 20 hours, to sew each of those flower bulbs.
It looks like a wedding dress.
Yeah, I mean, it looked incredible.
Honey.
And then here we go, Lil Nas X. He was probably wearing the least.
Yeah,
on the red carpet.
For the art world, that's pretty artistic, I guess. It was, there were like mixed reviews on Twitter, and but everybody seemed to love what Doja Cat was doing with the prosthetics and making herself, look like this real cat-like, type thing going on. For the most part, I think a lot of those outfits last night were pretty. That's Erica. Pretty interesting. Some of them were just classic, like she just had the baby. You know who I'm talking about. She just had the baby. Anybody in my ear? Kiki.
Oh, Kiki Palmer.
She looked very Hollywood classic regal.
Yeah.
So there were some who kind of stayed, Lizzo who kind of stayed right there.
Yeah.
You can go, oh yeah, and then some were like, And
the men look good, Bad Bunny, he had a look.
I didn't see him.
We talked about Diddy's look.
Yeah.
Trevor Noah was on the red carpet. He looked like he's living his best life.
Braids to the back. I know.
Lots of really great looks on the red carpet.
It was.
And what a great celebration of the arts.
Yeah. All right, moving on here. I think this is on you.
Yeah, staying in New York, the Mount Vernon community unveiled a new sculpture that captures the legacy of an influential musician who found his voice in the Big Apple. I'm talking about Heavy D. That's right, Jamaican-born rapper Heavy D, whose real name was Dwight Arrington Myers, moved to Mount Vernon with his family when he was younger and discovered rap early on. On Thursday, Brooklyn-based artist Eto Otegbe was joined by Heavy D's family and Mayor Sean Patterson Howard to unveil his sculpture in celebration of the 50th anniversary of hip-hop and the rapper's influence on the genre.
I absolutely used to kiss Heavy D's poster at night. I had the biggest, I did, Heavy D's poster at night, every night. And New Edition, Ralph in particular. I used to kiss their posters, every night. And as a matter of fact, the tie-in with Detroit with Heavy D is he used to go with date a young lady by the name of Dream Hampton. She's his writer, and she is the voice, if you will, behind the R. Kelly series. She brought that to light. And I was so jealous because she went to Cass Tech, and I was so jealous. I was like, well, how do you hook up with a Detroit girl from Cass Tech and not a Detroit girl from a Catholic school girl? Heavy D. No, but I used to love Heavy D, and his music is still on my rotation, and he is thoroughly missed. He had just really, gotten into acting and really made his way there. He's best friends with John Sally, NBA great, Detroit Pistons. So I follow, as you can hear, Heavy D. Miss him so much.
We can hear it.
I know. I'm just passionate about my hip-hop folks.
We love it. We love it.
All right, up next, it's our favorite segment, Black Excellence
That's
Time.
right. We're going to tell you all about the young black girl who's graduating from the University of Alabama. You're watching Fox Soul's Black Report. We'll be right back.
Can you guess how old she is?
Welcome back to Fox Soul's Black Report. Well, a 16-year-old, Leanna Roberts, is set to graduate summa cum laude from the University of Alabama. The Tuscaloosa native graduated from both high school and community college when she was just 14.
That same year, she enrolled at the University of Alabama to get started on her pre-med track. She is an ambassador for the Society of Women in Medicine and also performs research in health disparities in black communities. She's just a teenager. Her parents, Lee and LaTanya, are proud, but admit they had a few concerns with, about her being so young. So with the support of the school's administration, she was able to breeze through her studies in a safe environment and without letting her age put any limitations on her.
That's right. Within 2 years, Leanna will graduate with over a dozen honors and will continue taking graduate courses at the University of Alabama. We salute this sister. Come on, honor scores.
And let's stay in Alabama, as Alabama A&M University is seeing a significant increase in applications, especially for first-time freshmen, accepting nearly 10,000 students for the fall 2023 semester. That breaks a record in Equator Life.
That's right. The university received over 15,000 undergraduate applications, which account for a 30% increase. School officials say the growth is not by accident, as A&M appeals to students from all backgrounds and provides a rich living learning experience. A&M opened in 1875 as Huntsville Normal School, beginning with 2 teachers and 61 students, with ex-slave, formerly enslaved, William Hooper Counsel serving as the school's principal.
The university went through 2 additional name changes before becoming Alabama A&M University. This happened just in 1969. In addition to record-breaking first-time freshman class of 9,757 students, the university has also seen an increase in their transfer students. So not only are folks just coming to, Alabama A&M across the board, as I read a little bit more, there are just more and more younger folks coming out of high school saying, hey, I want the Black experience.
One of the things that Dr. Maya Angelou used to say often is look for the rainbow in the clouds, right? And so, there's a lot of news that we report on, particularly coming out of Alabama these days, right? These young people are our rainbow in the clouds.
Absolutely.
So we salute them.
Absolutely. For the full rundown on today's stories and more, make sure you access Fox Soul's video on demand. You can even access past shows and other Black-centered good stuff when you download the Fox Soul app.
So now, Courtney, tell us, what did you do this weekend that set the internet on fire?
Besides getting a style in my eye, left here on Thursday, I've been nonstop. Went to D.C. We did some TV. We had a stop by the White House. Everybody said hello to you and Aaron and the whole staff, because you've met some of those folks before, notably Corinne, your good girlfriend. And then we headed over to the Library of Congress. It was an all-day kind of thing, 3 different sessions where we were, talked with ourselves, inducted and things of that nature. And then I left DC and went down to my regional for my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, South Atlantic region, and got stuck in Houston, got stuck in Orlando and stuck in Houston, so I couldn't make it in tomorrow. Thanks, Lee Thomas. But it was a grand old time, and I am here with a style in my eye.
That's all right, but you look beautiful.
It was a wonderful occasion.
It's an honor to sit next to a Black woman in radio inductee. I'm Nicordelai Corte.
And I'm Courtney Hicks.
On behalf of everyone here at Fox Soul's Black Report, stay lifted.
And stay safe.